Unit 5, Life in the New Republic, Chapter 14, Lesson 3, Business and Everyday Life. What professions and trades were practiced in the Republic? Terms to know: log raft, a floating mass of tangled driftwood that can block a waterway. Media, ways of communicating information to large numbers of people. Telegraph, a device used to send and receive messages over long distances using codes for letters and numbers. Fiesta, a festival or religious celebration established to set up or begin something. Leather products, the steamboat, patchwork quilt. Work and industry in the Republic. Guiding question: what professions and trades were practiced in the Republic? Farming was the most important industry in the Republic of Texas, but people practiced other professions and trades too. As settlements and towns grew, the people of Texas found that they needed doctors, lawyers, teachers, ministers, and other professionals. For example, Frances Cox Henderson studied law and ran the law practice of her husband, James Pinckney Henderson, when he was away. Ashbel Smith was a doctor, diplomat, editor, and educator who also farmed and raised livestock on the Gulf Coast. As the population of Texas grew, the demand for artisans and skilled workers also increased. Blacksmiths made plow blades and other farming tools. They also made knives, window grates, and horseshoes. Wainwrights made wagons. Wheelwrights made wagon wheels. There were also furniture makers, cabinet makers, potters, and weavers. There was a boost in demand for certain industries too. Sawmills were built in new communities. The number of gristmills for grinding flour and corn meal increased also. By 1839, businesses in Texas were also producing cement, tin, and sheet iron products. The Texas cattle industry led to the growth of the hide and tallow trades. Hides were made into leather at tanneries. Artisans used the leather to make boots, saddles, and harnesses. The cattle's fat was made into tallow, which was used for cooking and to make candles and soap. Transportation and communications. Guiding question: what transportation methods and communication systems were in use during the Republic? In the 1840s and 1850s, travelers crossed Texas on foot, on horseback, and on carts or wagons pulled by animals. Stagecoaches carried passengers and mail on regular routes. Stagecoach travel was expensive, uncomfortable, and dangerous because of attacks by thieves and raiding Native Americans. However, stagecoaches were popular before railroads were constructed. Before large bridges were built, ferries made it possible for wagons to cross rivers and streams. Ferries were large, flat-bottomed barges used to carry people, wagons, and livestock across a river. Starting in the 1830s, steamboats came into use. They were used to carry passengers and freight on Texas rivers. By the 1840s, steamboats were running on the Trinity, Brazos, and Colorado River, among others. The way was sometimes blocked by log rafts or tangles of driftwood and sandbars. River traffic could also be halted if the river water was low. Transporting goods was expensive. Texas needed railroads, but it did not get them until 1853. Then the Buffalo Bayou, Brazos, and Colorado Railway Company opened a 20-mile route from Harrisburg to Stafford Point. Today, it is part of the Southern Pacific Rail Company. Railroad expansion continues slowly. By 1862, 9 railroad companies had only about 470 miles of track in Texas. During the Republic, Texans often got their news from travelers or by mail. They could also read the news in print media such as newspapers. Important newspapers of the time included the Telegraph and Texas Register and Galveston's Daily News. The invention of the telegraph in the 1840s transformed communications. A telegraph sent coded messages by wire or radio waves over long distances. Now information traveled much more quickly than ever before. In 1854, the first telegraph office in Texas opened in Marshall. Wires strung along treetops outside the office carried messages to and from towns in Louisiana and Mississippi. Telegraph lines in Texas soon reached Henderson, Rusk, Crockett, Montgomery, Houston, and Galveston. Everyday life in the Republic. Guiding question: what was daily life like for people of the Republic? During the Republic, writers like Mary A. Maverick wrote about Texans' daily lives and social activities, leaving detailed accounts of daily life in the Republic. Most Texans lived on isolated farms or ranches, but they enjoyed socializing. They assembled for corn husking bees, where people worked together to remove the husk from corn. Neighbors got together for house raisings to build new houses. At quilting bees, several women gathered to work on quilts. Hunting and fishing were common activities too. Dancing was popular. A traditional Texas dance style developed from the different folk dance styles of immigrants such as waltzes, polkas, and reels. Wealthy people joined in the more formal European ballroom styles. Tejanos and immigrants from Mexico danced the fandango. Both these groups also held fiestas or festivals. German, Irish, Czech, and other groups also held festivals. Many people in the Republic were Catholic, but others practiced a variety of religions. The Constitution of 1836 guaranteed religious freedom. After the Revolution, Protestant churches sprang up and preachers held revival meetings. Newspapers and private schools supported by various faiths were founded in the 1840s and 1850s. At the time of the Republic, few doctors lived in Texas. Those who did often delivered babies, set broken bones, and treated illnesses. The first civilian hospital in Texas opened in Galveston in 1851. Smaller towns had no doctors. Women often cared for the sick and delivered babies. Medicines were generally homemade. When Mirabeau Lamar became president, he set aside land for public education. A full public school system was never established in the Republic, however. During the Republic and well into statehood, children were educated at home by private teachers or at private schools. In 1854, a school fund set aside $2 million for public education. Much of the fund, however, was used for other projects, including the building of railroads. The Constitution of 1876 finally established a permanent fund for public schools.